We're joined over the phone by Bloomberg contributing editor and also the former deputy assistant to President George W. Bush on security measures, Richard Falkenrath. Richard, thanks for joining us on this. I know you've been briefed on this story very quickly. How significant do you believe it is that the NSA is now involved in this investigation?
Well, good morning, Betty. I think it's very significant, and there's basically two scenarios where the NSA would get involved in a case like this. The first is when the FBI decides they need help, where the sophistication of the attack exceeds their technical capacity to investigate. The second scenario is when national security is at stake, and that would mean there is evidence that a foreign government was witting or, in fact, had sponsored the attack. And so one of those two things, maybe both, is likely happening behind the scenes here.
Right. We just don't know which one yet. Richard, what does the NSA bring to the investigation? What more does it add?
Well, it adds a number of things. The first is it is the premier computer investigative service in the U.S. government. So their ability to do forensics of a computer network is the best in the U.S. government. But the second is they have extensive foreign intelligence on what other countries are up to and what attacks they may be sponsoring, they may have initiated elsewhere in the world. And so they're able to bring that intelligence to bear along with their investigative acumen to try to understand what exactly happened in a scenario like this.
So it sounds like, Richard, and I don't want to alarm, obviously, our viewers or anything like that, but it sounds as if that we may actually even be looking at a possibility of an attack on our national financial infrastructure, right? We're not just talking about getting insider information, but actually attacking the infrastructure.
An attack or reconnaissance on the infrastructure. So it may be that a foreign government was trying to understand how the network works so that if there were hostilities, they could attack it. Could be one or the other. It's also likely that this information was used for commercial gain in one way or another. They were looking to finance these networks. In the case of China, we know that there's sort of a gray area between the state and these cyber hacking criminal gangs that operate with a sort of blind eye turned to them by the Chinese government. So it could be happening in that kind of nexus of state power and the non-state hacktivist group.
Richard, to your knowledge, in these types of investigations, how difficult is it to obtain the information? I mean, why is it that that they would need to bring in the NSA? It must be that the information is encrypted. It's very difficult to obtain. That sort of thing, right?
That's right. First of all, they need the cooperation of Nasdaq. So unless there's a subpoena, Nasdaq is not compelled to turn over its internal computer network information to the government. So the first thing that says to me is Nasdaq is cooperating with the NSA. Okay. But second, it's very detailed forensic analysis of network traffic that is at the core of this. You need to see patterns of which IP address is talking to which other IP address and what small pieces of code called malware are being transmitted when and to what computers. As your story that Bloomberg broke says, sometimes this malware will lie dormant for months at a time before it suddenly activates to cause whatever harm or exfiltrate the data. And thus it's very difficult to find. It's painstaking work, and you need a lot of experience to be able to do that.
Right, and that's what this agency brings. Richard, just quickly, I mean, the fact that they've gotten involved in this Nasdaq case, I think they were also involved in the Google cyber attacks. What does that tell you about? What does that tell you?
Well, it tells me that the company is very worried, and they realize something bigger happened to them that they can figure out on their own. They probably started working with the FBI. Ordinarily, a company like this would not go directly to the NSA. They would be dealing with the FBI, and then the FBI would bring in the NSA once they determined that they needed that assistance.
Okay, Richard, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Richard Falkenrath, our Bloomberg contributing editor on security issues.